Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet Holistic. I am your host, Todd Schaefer, and with me, as always, is my co-host,
Kira Schaefer.
And today we have a very special guest on the show. We want to welcome one of our As You Wish authors, Talia Renzo. Welcome, Talia.
Thank you so much for having me, Todd. I'm so happy to be here.
We are happy to have you, too. And we're going to talk about some really cool stuff that we haven't covered yet in one of our podcasts. We're going to talk about what it means to have an organic grief process. And Talia is going to teach us some things about what that looks like and how we can foster those healthy grieving practices and allowing that process to happen for ourselves. She works with people doing this kind of work. And from what I've learned from her, she has some pretty amazing things to share to help people to be authentic with themselves. So we're going to touch on that. We're going to talk about that in this episode. But before we do, really quickly, Talia, I think you were a new author, first-time published author with As You Wish Publishing. Can you talk briefly about what your experience has been being a published author for the first time with As You Wish Publishing?
Oh my gosh, it's really been such an amazing experience with this book I did, Life Coach. Like, I have chills just thinking about how much it's amplified in my life and how much it's made a tremendous difference and shift in how I view myself as a life coach and how I, want to help better teach, and how I was surrounded by such amazing energy with the other authors that were involved. And it's an amazing experience. I've learned so much, and I've really embraced a lot of fears and obstacles of overcoming publishing. When I was 16 years old, I wrote a book, and I didn't have it published because I was really scared of putting my work out there. I was fearful of judgment. I was fearful of rejection, and I got rejected by publishers quite often. So when I published with As You Wish Publishing, it was just honestly a dream come true from where I started and where I am now. And you can see the amount of growth and the amount of trust that I've put into my work that I've envisioned. And As You Wish Publishing made it the success that I couldn't even imagine when I was younger. So I really am blessed.
Oh, wow. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. And you've been a joy to have.
Yes, absolutely.
For sure.
An excellent writer, too.
Great writer.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll definitely be publishing with you guys again.
We've got a growing community and family here.
Yes, we do.
And,
absolutely.
And publishing these days is much different than it was 10, 20 years ago. Having the personal connection and the personal touch gives people the confidence to publish with companies like us, and I'm sure there are others, yes, instead of having to do, big house, faceless publishing kind of stuff.
Right.
So anyway, to each his own, I suppose. Whatever you're drawn to is appropriate.
I think as long as we can find the support and the love that we need, then it's all worth it. And so speaking of support and love and all of that, let's talk about the grieving process. Let's talk about, Talia, your specialty, and let's see if we can help some folks today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely, like I said, I'm so happy to be here, and I'd love to give my support in any way for people that are in the grieving process or know someone that's currently grieving in their life right now. I really want to give and contribute to that really sensitive direction in life. A little bit about me is when I was 15 years old, my dad passed away very unexpectedly, and I was at a place in my life where I had no self-esteem as it was being a teenager in the midst of hormones and everything. And I was really struggling with myself and what I wanted to do with myself and my life. And I really just wanted to feel like I belonged somewhere. And I didn't know how or what I was going to do healing myself with this process. So I began writing, and I began thinking about how it made me feel with the entire process. Once I became in tune with myself and I became present with my emotions, I really learned a lot about myself and how I could contribute to others and make people feel better.
So what would you say is a tool or something that people could use if they have recently lost a loved one? I know that everything kind of goes in stages, and especially depending upon how the person has passed and all kinds of stuff, whether it's tragic accident, whether it's something that people knew about for a long time that it was a potential, or suicide. So there's so many different things that happen based off of those different types of deaths that occur. So what would you say is the top thing that you would say to somebody who's just recently lost someone?
Wow, that's a really good question. I would really say that there's a lot of love and support around you that you may or may not realize. The common thing we say is that we're here for you and that you're going to get through this. Mm-hmm. And as reassuring as that is, we want to hear, how are we going to get through this? Mm-hmm. So I think I would give the advice and maybe even like an affirmation of, you will get through this with the support of your loved ones. You will get through this with your talents that you have in life. Talents are very healing and soothing and therapeutic when you put them to use. If you're an artist, you're a painter, you're a drummer, you're a writer, those things really help construct a better daily routine. And when you have a good routine and you stick with a good routine every day, and time will help as well, it really does help make a difference in your days, and it will make a difference in your grieving process. So I think I would definitely advise them different ways and strategies that they can move through their grieving process.
That was leading to my next question. What really helps a person who is experiencing grief and loss to allow themselves to get through it? Obviously, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes weeks or months even. But what's one of the best suggestions for someone that you can give who is in a grieving process and they don't know what to do with all the things that they're feeling, other than having that healthy routine you just said?
Right. That's definitely an amazing question, because I had that question as well in my time of grief. And what I found is being present with yourself, being present with your emotions, and going back, what I like to call, what I've learned from a really amazing spiritual advisor, is she taught me going back to basics. You need to do things that are like requiring mindless thought. And it's like going back to simple things that we neglect through the grieving process. We sometimes, we neglect eating 3 meals a day.
Right.
7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. We neglect things that we overall need for our optimal health. And rejecting those things isn't going to get us anywhere but in a darker and more emotional place, more depressing, more anxiety that's manifested. So doing things like being present with yourself, being present with your body in that time, practicing little things like having breakfast. And then if you, every day, if you feel like you haven't accomplished something, do something extremely small, like make your bed in the morning, or, color or something. Do something that's intuitive and that you feel is best for serving your best intention. And it really does make a difference in your overall day if you do something completely small and mindless that's for yourself and for your health and for your grieving process.
I love that. The only other question I really have that strongly comes to mind for me is guilt. So when someone passes or something like that, when someone's in a grieving process, either they themselves and or the people around them, in my experience, tend to have a lot of guilt about especially depending on the circumstances, and they start blaming themselves. That's the form of the guilt, even if they have nothing to do with how that person passed, and just start beating themselves up saying, well, I should have done this or I should have done that differently. Do you have any suggestions for how a person going through grief and the resulting guilt, or suggestions for people surrounding who aren't directly affected by the grief, who are also experiencing a sense of guilt? Any suggestions for them, for any of those people who are doing the blame game and the guilt when the passing may have had nothing to do with them? You know what I mean?
Right. I know exactly what you mean. And I'm very familiar with that as well. In my process, when I lost my dad, the night he passed away, like we were fighting and he was really angry and just in a really agitated mood. And I was like, did I do something? And then after he passed away, I was like, wow, the last memory I have with him was us fighting. And I don't really, talk about that often, but due to this question, I feel it's important to bring to surface that I really did have like a guilty, few weeks where I was like, oh my God, like the last conversation I had with him, we were angry and I didn't say goodnight to him. I didn't like get a goodnight hug from him. It wasn't like a fulfilling last memory anyone would want with their father. But what's really important in this situation is that we all come together as one. Whoever feels the most guilt, we all be there for that person. If it's us, we need to be surrounded by those who build us up and realize that it's nobody's fault. And, it's a guilty process, and it's a really interesting wave in the grieving process where it happens to some, but not everybody. Mm-hmm. But what's really important is that you come together and realize that regardless, I believe everything is meant to happen for a reason. Everyone has their time, and the universe has its own manifestation of destined time for something to occur. Regardless if we feel like, well, I wish I, could have done this with this person, or I wish I could have done that. It's like in the kindest way, without it sounding like a Band-Aid ripping off. It's like they're on their next part of their journey. Mm-hmm. And we have to fulfill our next part of our journey. And we can't look back and say, well, I wish I could have done this, and I wish that things were different, because, we'll get stuck in our process more of grief, and we have to move forward, and we have to move together with kindness and compassion together, or else it's not going to manifest a better future for us and for our family and loved ones. So I would definitely recommend for people that feel guilt to surround yourself with love and positivity, and to definitely talk about it, because it will bring a weight down on your brain and make you feel like you did something wrong, and you did nothing wrong. You're doing everything right in this process. And, it really does take time. It takes effort, and it takes endless love for yourself, from yourself, and from others to really get through this process. And I assure you that amazing things will happen and come out of it if you really put yourself in that mindset, and you will take off, and amazing things will happen.
Very nice.
Awesome.
I'm definitely hearing movement. I'm hearing routine. I'm hearing just recognizing that they're on to their next steps, and we need to not get stuck in our steps, just to just move ourselves. So I'm hearing that movement.
And allowing.
That's a great way to put it, for sure.
Right. Yeah. A lot of acceptance, a lot of support, a lot of letting yourself feel what's there to feel, kind of thing.
Yeah. And releasing those people that aren't serving you any longer. Yeah.
Oh, and that's an amazing thing with grief, is you'll lose a lot of people that aren't serving you, and you think that it's your fault. It's not your fault. It's the manifestation of the universe and what's meant to be, and that was meant to happen for a reason. Mm-hmm. And that's a very common thing. When we lose someone, we lose other people as well. And we think we did something wrong, but it's really the universe working in mysterious ways to serve our highest good.
I love it. So Talia, how can people get in touch with you?
Usually through Facebook, and I also have a website as well that I just launched earlier this month, so people can go visit on there as well. It's www.taliarenzo.com.
Perfect.
TaliaRenzo.com. Got it. Talia, thank you so much for being a guest. This has been really enlightening. Lots of great information.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really am blessed to be a part of As You Wish Publishing, and I look forward to our next project together. And this podcast is so amazing. I wish you guys the best of luck with future podcasts as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Well, we are out of time today. Thank you so much. My name is Kira Schaefer.
And Todd Schaefer here. And we will talk to you next time.